Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is me Fatima Khan, Business Wali. I am a student of Rihani I Teachers Training Institute Batch 22. Today I am going to discuss a very important topic with ChatGPT, that is the learning from failure, turning setbacks into opportunities. So today we will learn about this topic from ChatGPT. So let's start. Hello ChatGPT.
Hey, I'm really glad you're here. What's on your mind today?
Today I want to learn about the topic is learning from failure, turning setbacks into opportunities.
Oh, that's a really powerful topic. There's so much to unpack, like how setbacks are actually kind of a natural part of growth, and how people use failure as a springboard for new skills or even new directions. What angle or part of the topic are you most curious about?
So, my first question is this: what does learning from failure mean to you?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think for me, learning from failure is about not seeing mistakes as a dead end, but as these signposts that point me towards something better. It's like instead of being stuck in disappointment, I try to ask, what can this teach me? How about you? What does it mean to you?
I have no knowledge about this topic, so I'm discussing with this topic with you.
Ah, that's totally okay. We can walk through it step by step. Basically, learning from failure means recognizing when something doesn't go as planned, but instead of giving up, you reflect on what happened, why it went wrong, and you adjust for next time. If you'd like, I can share some examples or break it down into steps.
Okay, why is failure important in personal growth?
Oh, that's a really key point. So, failure is kind of like a built in teacher. When things go wrong, it forces us to pause and rethink. So, we see gaps in our skills, we learn what we don't know yet, and we build resilience. Without failure, we kind of just stay put. So, it pushes us forward even when it feels tough. Does that make sense?
Can failure really become an opportunity? How?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about it. So many inventors or successful people had failures first. For example, Thomas Edison said every failed light bulb was just one step closer to the right one. So when we reframe failure, like we don't see it as a wall, but as a detour, it opens up all these new pathways we wouldn't have thought of.
How can a person stay motivated after failing?
Yeah, that's a really tough thing, right? I think staying motivated after a failure is all about perspective. It helps if you give yourself some space to feel disappointed, but then remind yourself why you started or what you learned. And sometimes just taking a small step, even a tiny win, can help spark that drive again.
Do successful people fail more than others? Why?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. A lot of times, successful people take bigger risks or they just try a ton of different things. So naturally, they're going to fail more often. But each failure is kind of like a data point for them. They tweak their approach, keep going, and eventually they break through.
How can we change our mindset about failure?
Yeah, mindset is super key. One big shift is to see failure as a temporary setback, not a reflection of your worth. You can also practice self compassion, like talk to yourself the way you talk to a friend. And it helps to focus on the process, celebrate effort, not just the outcome. That makes failure feel part of your growth, not a dead end.
What role does self reflection play after failure?
Yeah, definitely. Reflection is super powerful after a failure because it gives you a chance to pause and think about what went wrong, what was in your control, and what you can do differently next time. When you reflect, you're basically turning that failure into a roadmap. So next time you have a clearer direction.
How can failure improve decision making skills?
Oh, for sure. I mean, when you fail, you get this instant feedback about what not to do, right? And if you reflect, you start spotting patterns. So next time you're making a decision, you've got more context. It's like your judgment sharpens because you know what pitfalls to avoid.
What are common mistakes people make after facing failure?
Yeah, a really common one is just giving up too soon. Like people think, oh, this was a sign I'm not meant to do this, when really persistence is key. Another mistake is not reflecting, just moving on without learning. And sometimes people isolate themselves thinking they have to do it all alone, when reaching out for help could actually be a game changer.
How can students benefit from their academic failure?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even academic failure can be a big teacher. When you don't do as well as you hoped, it gives you a chance to figure out what study methods worked or didn't, how you handle stress, and how you can improve next time. So even though it feels tough, it can help you build grit and resilience, which are super important for later success.
Can failure build confidence? Explain how.
Yeah, it can. So when you fail and then keep going, you prove to yourself that you can handle setbacks. Each time you pick yourself up, you get this little boost of confidence like, hey, I didn't give up, so I can keep going. Over time, that builds a sense of self efficacy, like you trust yourself more, even when things don't go as planned.
What is the difference between failure and giving up?
Ooh, that's a really important distinction. So, failure is just a part of trying something new or challenging. You haven't reached the end. But giving up is when you stop before you've really explored what could be possible. So, failure just means you stumbled. Giving up means you quit before you see what's next.
How can we turn a negative experience into a positive lesson?
Yeah, that's a great mindset shift. I think the key is to ask yourself, what can I learn from this? So instead of just seeing it as a failure, you look for a takeaway. Maybe a new strategy, a hidden strength you didn't know you had, or even a new path forward. And once you see that lesson, it starts to feel a lot more positive.
How important is resilience in dealing with setbacks?
Oh, resilience is huge. It's basically what keeps you moving forward when things get tough. So when you hit a setback, if you have resilience, you bounce back, adapt, and keep trying. It's like a muscle. You strengthen it every time you push through a tough moment.
Okay, so tell me one example of turning failure into success in real life.
Oh, totally. A classic example is J.K. Rowling. Before Harry Potter was a global success, she got rejected by tons of publishers, like more than a dozen times. But instead of giving up, she kept going, and obviously it turned into one of the most successful book series ever. So she used that failure as fuel.
How does failure help in developing patience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, each time you fail and keep going, you get more familiar with discomfort. So you learn how to sit with uncertainty, keep your focus, and trust that you can persevere. Over time, that builds a kind of inner grit that makes you more capable of handling future failures.
Can failure improve creativity? How?
Yeah, it really can. When things don't go as planned, your brain kind of shakes things up. So you start looking at problems from new perspectives or you come up with unexpected solutions. Basically, failure pushes you out of your comfort zone, and that's where creativity thrives.
What is the role of hard work after a failure?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, failure might slow you down, but it's the follow up effort that really counts. Once you know what went wrong, you have to apply those lessons. So you rework, you try again, you put in that hard, focused effort. That's where growth really happens.
Why do some people fear
Uh,
failure more than others?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think a big factor is often fear of judgment. Like some people tie their self worth really closely to success, so failure feels like a personal attack. Others might have a fear of uncertainty or just not have had as much practice bouncing back. But it's all something we can work on with time.
How can failure improve leadership skills?
Oh, definitely. I mean, when leaders go through failure, they develop empathy because they know what it's like to struggle. They also get better at taking responsibility, being adaptable, and inspiring their team by showing how they persevere. So, in a way, failure kind of rounds out their leadership.
What habits help in recovering from setbacks quickly?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think having a support system is huge, whether it's friends, family, or a mentor who can encourage you. Also, just setting small, achievable goals after a setback helps. You get little wins that rebuild your confidence. And of course, self compassion, being kind to yourself in that process makes a big difference.
How does failure contribute to success in career development?
Yeah, I mean, failure is kind of like a growth hack in disguise. When you fail, you figure out what skills or knowledge you need to build, so it nudges you onto a path of improvement. Over time, those lessons shape your expertise, your confidence, and even your network, so setbacks can really steer you toward that long term success.
How can we analyze our mistakes effectively?
Yeah, for sure. One way is to break down what happened step by step. Like ask yourself what exactly went wrong, what part was in my control. Then you can look for patterns. Maybe you skipped a step or your timing was off. And once you have that clarity, you adjust your approach and you keep moving forward with more insight.
What mindset turns failure into stepping stones?
I love that. Yeah, it's really all about seeing each failure as a small step, not a stop sign. So each time you fail, you figure out what didn't work, adjust, and then take that next step with more confidence. Over time, those small steps add up to big progress.
My last question: how can someone use past failures to achieve future goals?
Yeah, that's a great final question. So basically, you can look back at those past failures and identify what patterns or skills you gained. Then you take those lessons and apply them to your future goals. So you don't just repeat mistakes, but you build on them. And that way, each failure is kind of a stepping stone that guides you towards your next success.
Okay, thank you, ChatGPT.
You're so welcome. I'm really glad we could talk through this. And if you ever want to dive into anything else or just explore more topics, I'm here.
So that's all about the conversation. I hope you learned something new in this conversation. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to me. Allah Hafiz.